All right, people, here we go. It is now a Tuesday. It is January the 21st. It is 2020, and it's all about college hoops. And nobody better to speak college hoops with than our good friend here, Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com, guys, which, of course, I would invite you to head over. If you haven't done so already, you can check out Ralph's page there. Pretty simple stuff. Go to the handicappers page, and then, boom, look up Cal Sports, and you've got, of course, all of Ralph's picks and options, 3-day, 7-day, 10-day, 12-day, half a day, 2 hours, 1 hour. Ralph's good like that, man. He's really good like that, man. You can get him by the minute if you want. He's like a good Motel 6. But we've got college hoops tonight. We had some games last night we told you about, and kudos to Ralph. Gave you a Prairie View of all the damn games. Ralph gives you Prairie View, and it delivers. We talked about Baylor in the first half, covering the 5.5, and they ended up doing that. So it was actually a pretty good day there yesterday, Ralph, for a limited card.
And the Virginia game reached 100.
Yes. Barely meets the 100. That's correct. And we're sitting here scratching our heads yesterday going, wow, this number keeps going up. Like, people are actually betting an over in Virginia. Yeah, that was definitely not the right play. But we definitely got a whole bunch of interesting plays on the card here today, Ralph. Another 25, 26 games. A quick look back at yesterday and some of those games last night as far as the upsets go, Ralph. I guess, listen, the Wolfpack against Virginia. Virginia had owned them in that series, especially at home. I think they were 9-1 out of the last 10, both straight up and against the number. And it just the second half, they fell apart, Ralph.
We were talking about how short of a bench NC State might have. Well, they slowed the tempo because they only played 7 players. So, NC State did what a lot of teams do when they're shorthanded, is slow the tempo, which calls for an under. We talked about a couple potential injuries. Abrahams didn't play. Yeah, neither played. So, and if you're a coach and someone has a short bench, you often want to press the pace. But Virginia is never going to press the pace. So what do you have? You have a 53-52 game, and NC State just shot a little better from three-pointer. When I say a little better, I just mean a little better because Virginia was 3 of 12. NC State was 5 of 16. So neither shot great.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a fantastic performance by any stretch of the imagination, but there was a couple of individual performances last night, Ralph, that stuck out. And listen, anytime you make Merrimack makes the list here at St. Francis, it's probably a good night, Ralph, as well as Fairleigh Dickinson, Alcorn, Weber State there with Cody John taking on Portland State. That was another interesting game on the card last night, Ralph, that we were kind of going back and forth wondering who was going to show up in that game.
Yeah, and again, you're looking at guys that, 4 of those 6 teams are probably games that people never bet on because they're extra or those added games. With the holiday yesterday, it was a very limited card. We had 6 or 7 regular line games plus the smaller conferences. So, you see those players, the Merrimacks and the Deshaw Andrews putting up 30 points for Alcorn State.
Yep, and it's funny, Ralph, another one of those games we talked about last night. I said, man, that was a perfect spot for West Virginia to bounce back about Texas, wasn't it? It just wasn't. I figured they'd win. I wasn't sure that they were going to win by 29 friggin' points there, Ralph, covering the spread. They were almost double digits, but they cleared that no problem against Texas, and all of a sudden, Shaka Smart, that hot seat just got a little bit hotter, didn't it, at Texas?
Yeah, West Virginia is a team that certainly understood they were in a good position off an embarrassing loss to Kansas State, returning home. But the question with them is their offense, and they've been very inconsistent. But at home, they put it together last night, and they rolled Texas. And, we see we see some of those other scores, St. Francis only scoring 55 and Alcorn State holding Arkansas Pine Bluff to 54. So all 3 of those covers are because of teams held defenses in the 50s.
Yep, absolutely. And, of course, Yale, there we saw Yale do a pretty good job, too. All of a sudden, we got some guys that can shoot on there. Don't sleep on the Ivy Leagues. Harvard and Yale, once again, going to cause some issues here down the road. But Ralph, all in all, it was I mean, outside of Baylor last night, I guess we should mention that Baylor, too, although they held on to win that game there, they another win at home. A win is a win, and people are, for some reason, Ralph, they keep waiting for the wheels to fall off of Baylor, and I don't know that is going to happen at this point, at least anytime soon.
Well, you know what you have with Baylor is you have a very good offense, an elite defense, a slow tempo, and you're going to pay a premium now for being the AP number one. So they're happy winning games by 4. I think you're going to get a lot of situations where they're going to win and not cover because you're laying the inflated number for a 16-1 team. That's the AP number one.
Yep, and there are some great games on the card here tonight, guys, and we got a couple of featured games that we'll go ahead and talk about coming up, as well as take a look at the marketplace here. Our feature games today, we'll hit Butler, Villanova, Florida at LSU. And before we take a look at some of the movers and shakers on the rest of the games here, Ralph, talk to me about our trends and angles of the day here with some of these games.
This one caught me by surprise. Utah State, I always think of them as a good defensive team. They're playing Air Force today. They're 31-6 over under as a home favorite off a road game like they are. The opposite, Northwestern has been an under team. There's a lot of trends facing under, and one of those, an example, 11-42 under off a road loss, facing an opponent that made more than 30% from three-point range. So, when teams shoot well the day before, you expect regression. Northwestern in an unders role in there. Northern Illinois as a road dog, when they had assists on less than 45% of your field goals. So you're going down, and that means you are not sharing the ball. You're not passing, you're just shooting. You would think the next game, well, they do get reamed the next game. 0-14 over-under, so 14 straight unders in that role. And we're going to talk about Villanova Butler, so I want to mention a stat with them. When Villanova's at home and they're coming off a poor game in which they shot under 40%, they are 19-2 against the spread.
That's actually an interesting. Well, hold on to that thought. We'll get to that game in a second here, as we take a look at the marketplace, Ralph. And there's a couple of very interesting games that are moving here that we'll get your initial thoughts on. And one of them that stood out to me, it was a game I was hemming and hawing about too here, maybe to go against the home team, but. Apparently I'm not alone. South Florida at home here hosting Wichita State tonight, Ralph. And Wichita State opened up as a 3-point road favorite, but that money keeps rolling. They were now up to 5 in some places, even a 5.5 out there. The total creeping up as well. Wichita State on the road. I'm hesitant to pull the trigger, Ralph. I don't know. Am I crazy?
I looked at Wichita State, but the line climbed a little. I mean, there's only one way I could go. Wichita State's off back-to-back losses, and I understand the losses. They were at a double overtime game against UConn, then they played a second straight road game at Temple and they lost. And I don't think people give Houston enough credit. I have Houston power rated higher than Wichita. So, they lost a home game against them. So South Florida's only wins, at home against UConn and FAU their last 8 games. I expect Wichita to bounce back. South Florida was in a battle against UCF, and they've hung tough. You look at South Florida's last 3 games: 3-point loss East Carolina, 4-point loss to Memphis, 1-point loss to UCF. But there's such a disparity between the teams that, again, it would be Wichita off back-to-back losses or pass for me.
It's got to ask you about this, Ralph, because I understand why it's getting out of control, but it's getting out of control. And that is Duke at home taking on Jim Larinaga and the University of Miami, because we're talking about, as it was, 16.5 to open, Ralph. I'm seeing 18.5 and maybe even a 19 out in the market. Listen, I get Duke's off of back-to-back losses, guys, like lost 2 in a row, but holy crap. I mean, are we really not giving Miami any credit? It just feels like they've been undervalued here, Miami, even in their last game against Florida State that they took to overtime.
That sounds like something I should look up in the database, Joe. Duke off back-to-back losses. Ooh. Oh, yeah. I tweeted it about an hour and a half ago. Since the database in college basketball goes back since 2006, Duke has lost back-to-back games 14 times. The average line in their next game was minus 6.7. Okay. So we're going back some years when they weren't great. Okay? Off back-to-back losses, they're only 9-5 straight up, and they're 7-7 against the spread. So be careful that you think they're just that juggernaut, as you said, and just automatically assume this is not last year's Duke team.
Thank you. Yep.
And, I agree with you. I think the line is just too high. Coming off back-to-back losses, I'm looking back in that stretch. They were an 11.5-point favorite against Syracuse in 2016. They lost that game outright.
Yep.
They were a 10-point favorite to NC State. That was in the conference tournaments. They lost that game outright. And they were a 23-point favorite against St. John's in 2008, and they won and covered that. So as a double-digit favorite, they're not only 1-2 ATS, they're 1-2 straight up off back-to-back losses.
Yeah, a lot of value in that game, guys. We'll talk about that coming up here, Ralph. But the biggest total move, Ralph, that I saw on the board here today, it's not one of our featured games, but it's certainly going to be a featured game for many people. Illinois traveling to Purdue here, and this game, Ralph, opened up at 122. It is now 127.5, so a 5.5 point total increase between Illinois and Purdue, and we're talking about a Purdue team that only scored, 35 points against Illinois to start the season here, but there's a big difference between Purdue at home and Purdue on the road. That place is very tough to play, Ralph, but still, why such an increase in total, you think?
Well, I think you look at Purdue scoring, and, I understand it. You could say you scored 37 against, you scored 37 at Illinois. Mm-hmm. The double overtime game against Michigan, so that's inflated. You scored 50 on the road against Maryland, so it's really what have you done for me lately? But as you said, they also scored 71 at home against Michigan State. Mm-hmm. It's almost a must-win for Purdue, being 1-3 the last couple games. They've played 4 overtimes in the last 5 games, two games with 2 overtimes each. I like the way Illinois is playing. Current form has my power rating higher for Illinois against Purdue. But with that quick turnaround revenge and the way they got embarrassed and Purdue being off a loss, I just couldn't pull the trigger on Illinois. And as far as the scoring goes, I would lean under. Again, yeah. I am not going to, Purdue hasn't found a consistent offense. Illinois is playing decent defense. So, it's not a move I agree with.
All right. So then plenty of games on the board here, Ralph, that might provide us a little value towards an underdog here. Was there one that stuck out to you a little bit?
Joe, I sent a note out to my customers that I don't think I have ever passed on a day with this many games.
Ooh.
But there's nothing that worked into my system. So I actually passed as far as side plays go today. But, the 3 games that were in the mix were all underdogs. And I'll pick one, excuse me, I'll pick one to be the best bet in a minute. But, the dogs that I like that are playing solid in current form are Illinois, San Jose State, and Air Force. Illinois, again, playing Purdue, San Jose State playing New Mexico, and Air Force playing Utah State. The problem is, when I look at these lines, if I had made these lines a month ago, we're losing points on all of those.
Right.
Because the way Purdue played, because the way New Mexico's played their last 2 road games, and as bad as Utah State's playing. So I don't want to play into a tough home court with teams desperate to win that are off crappy road losses on dogs that just a couple weeks ago, I would have been getting 3 or 4 points more than that. So that's not the formula for success. So hence, like I said, while I lean with all 3 of those dogs, none made my card, and I didn't get to the window with any side play today.
It's interesting, Ralph. I looked at Butler as a possible upset there on the road in Villanova. Tough spot, but coming off a couple of losses, Butler there. Both those teams. I mean, what can you say about them? They're rolling here, but Butler seems to be going the other way right now. But I keep going back to that damn spread in the University of Miami and thinking, guys, you want to give me 18.5 points against this team that does not quit, that's got plenty of athletes. The value is there from an underdog position there, Ralph. That's a lot of points to be given up against a Duke team that is not the old Duke team. And I also think that St. John's as an underdog, Ralph, is being way undervalued here. A little too much love for Marquette, in my opinion, with a 9-point number that they're going to be laying against St. John's tonight.
It is, and I'm going to throw in one more power team that, you're paying the premium for, and that's Virginia Commonwealth against St. Joe's. That, I think that line is inflated as well. Yep.
And, of course, guys, 2 of the featured games on the card here tonight that we'll take a look at. I know there are going to be a lot of people watching. We mentioned it there. Butler-Villanova here, Ralph, tonight. So, I mean, listen, Butler laying. Let me make sure what the updated odds are. So
Villanova
laying 3.5. The total creeping up. I got 130.5, 131 across the board there. But listen, what can you say about these 2 teams? They're rolling, but Butler's had a couple of bad defeats here, and Villanova, man, they can score with the best of them. So who do you trust more, Butler's defense or Villanova's scoring ability?
Well, you look at that scoring ability, and you only put up 61 against UConn, in your last game. The tough thing to know about Villanova is, after that Creighton win, you were home for 3 straight games against the bottom of the conference. You played Georgetown, DePaul, and Connecticut. So, you're looking at a situation where, how well are you playing? You don't know. But Butler in a tough spot. Seton Hall losing at home. We talked about that game. We had no issues with that. We even leaned Seton Hall, getting a defensive dog with the best player on the court. But the loss to DePaul, where you only scored 66, clearly concerned me. So, when someone can press the pace a little bit, they've given up points the last 2 games. To me, the game's a toss-up. Am I going to give Villanova a 3-point home edge or a 3.5-point home edge? I think I would, because you're home for a 4th straight game. You haven't traveled. You haven't been tested. And you have Providence on deck, so it's not like it's a same season rivalry game on deck. I would lean Villanova. I mean, a great game, but I would lean with them, and I would also lean with the under.
Yeah, I'm with you all over the under on there, Ralph, especially with the pace of play from the Bulldogs here. You mentioned the scoring ability of Villanova, just, dropping that few points there on UConn. To me, I know it's creeping up a little bit at 130, 131, but to me, it would be under a pass in this game. I think these 2 defenses show up and show out, and I think Villanova's got just a little too much firepower in this one. So it's going to be one hell of a game here tonight, as is the one in the SEC, Ralph. Holy crap, Florida, right? Coming off of a big win. Now all of a sudden, LSU putting it together. Powerhouse SEC matchup here, Ralph. You are looking at LSU laying 3 now, 2.5, 3 at home. Total coming down to 143 in this matchup. How you see this one working out?
Well, we talked about this, a couple weeks ago. that how much love LSU is getting. And, they sit 13-4 now. Losses to East Tennessee and Utah State, and USC weren't good, but you've run off 5 straight wins in the SEC.
Yep.
But you look at those last 4 wins: Arkansas by 2, Mississippi State by 1, A&M in overtime, and Mississippi by 4. And you look at it, you're 0-3-1 against the spread the last 4. Florida is a team where I think there's some value. This was a team that some people had as a top 10 team to start the year, and they just played like crap, getting blown out against Florida State and losing to UConn on the road. Then they lost to Utah State, Butler, and Missouri. But I like the Florida team. I mean, they slow the pace, and LSU is a team that wants to play fast. So does Florida have the guards to be able to speed up the pace? You have a couple sophomore guards. Nembert's playing well. He started every game as a sophomore. He's starting to get in his groove. To me, I think LSU's a little overrated, and I think there's still some value on Florida, as I still think that by the end of the year, Mike White will have his Gators playing at a top 10 level.
Yeah, a lot of guys weren't comfortable backing him against Auburn. Of course, they were too inconsistent. While they had a pretty easy time there. Did a great job against Auburn. Now they look to take on LSU. I think the number was a little inflated from the total standpoint, Ralph, as these two teams they play, like you said, at a little quicker tempo. I think the over has combined in 13 of their last 18 contests, but I think it's a little overvalued. I understand why it's coming down a little bit from 145 to 143 here. I think I would lean under in this game as well, because these are two of the best defensive efficient teams that we have in the country right now. I think points are going to be hard to come by here.
Yeah, it's a game where, LSU can put up some points. We know that. And, despite their numbers being, over numbers for the most part, you're also talking about an LSU team that, let me just jump into the defense. Florida, Ken Palm's defense has Florida about 40. So LSU has played 1, 2, 3, 4. They've played 5 top 40 defenses. They lost to VCU. They lost to USC, which is a 59 defense. They scored 78 against Tennessee, but I don't see Tennessee's defense being that. And Arkansas's defense was good, and they won that by 2 points. So I think the combination of good defense and slowing the pace frustrates LSU.
Yep, yeah, I'm with you there. I'd lean the under in that matchup, guys. But we do have a best bet time here. I don't know if there's a situational, Ralph, you want to throw out. If not, give us your best bet. Where are you leaning here tonight on a card that you had no plays on, you crazy bastard, you?
Well, I'm of the 3 dogs that I like the most. I've had a couple wins with Air Force, and they just continue to not get respect. And actually, over the last month, I have Air Force with a higher power rating number than Utah State. This Utah State team, again, early this year, they beat LSU. They beat Florida. They had some big wins, but they're 1-5 their last 5 games. They're off an overtime game on Saturday against Boise on the road. They, Air Force is a good offensive team. They pass the ball a lot. They frustrate a team on defense. And, while Boise's in that must-win situation, and Boise has revenge for a loss just a couple games ago on January the 15th. On January the 7th, Air Force won by 19 at home. So I'm getting that same team that won by 19, that's in better current form, and I'm getting the points I am. So I will take Air Force.
Going Air Force there on the points. That's true. By the way, I think the Aggies 1-8 against the number in their last 9 as a favorite, so it has not been great. I'm kind of with you. I think we can both agree that San Diego State will wake up tomorrow. They will still remain, Ralph, the undefeated team in the country as they take on Wyoming at home of all places. It's 24 points, and I'd probably have no problem throwing a couple of bucks and backing them. They beat them by 20 in Wyoming. I don't see how Wyoming scores in this game. They managed to get worse after last year. But I'm going to go the other way, Ralph. I'm going to go Big Ten here tonight. And I am going to say right now that I believe Maryland, if they win one damn game on the road this year, it's going to be tonight, and it's going to be against Northwestern. If they don't pack it up, I don't know what the hell else to tell you, guys. You got to be able to win a game on the road, and they should be able to do this. The Wildcats, listen, they don't cover. They're 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 in their own home building. Listen, Maryland's owned this rivalry, this kind of matchup here. So it's a short. I think it's the reason that they haven't won on the road. I think that's why this isn't a double-digit number. So I do think there's some value backing Maryland here, getting laying the 7 to get the job done here. I don't think this one's going to be close.
Yeah, well, let's see. They have Rutgers, Minnesota, Ohio State.
Oh,
Michigan
you go and
State,
look ahead
Illinois,
on me, damn it! I knew it. You were going look ahead.
Yeah, I agree with the philosophy. I mean, it makes certain sense. If Mark Turgeon's got to just be smacking these guys around. I mean, if you, again, Penn State's a tough place to play. Seton Hall's a tough place to play. Iowa's a tough place to play. Wisconsin, it's the Big Ten. They're all tough to play, but you're certainly going to have some bad thoughts in your head if you start going in late into February and you haven't won a true road game yet. Yep. So I do have an angle, Joe. You brought up San Diego State.
Sure.
San Diego State is 3-22 over under when they're a home favorite. If they're off back-to-back wins as a favorite, obviously they're a favorite in most games. So
right.
Just when they're a home favorite off back-to-back wins as a favorite, which is almost every game from here on out for them.
Right.
3-22 over under.
3-22 over under. All right, so the under at 118, guys, might definitely be worth taking a look. And I agree because I don't know that they're going to score more than 40 points, Wyoming. I really don't. As good a scoring team as San Diego State, they are elite defensively, too, as well. So that's a tough game for Wyoming here tonight. But plenty of opportunities for you guys to be able to profit, and it also starts by you heading over to wagertalk.com, guys, and make sure you check out Ralph's page there. Who knows? Maybe he changes his mind a little bit later on here. Head over to the Handicappers page, Cal Sports. Make sure you're tailing Ralph also on Twitter. Great games on the hardwood here tonight. Only one NBA game, so you got plenty of opportunity to dive into some college hoops here tonight. Enjoy the games. Come back and join us tomorrow. Ralph and I will break them all down, and we'll get you ready for another day of college hoops, Ralph. So good luck, my man.
Joe, we'll talk to you in 23.
You got it.